The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Brought to you by the National Cannabis Coalition.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Oh, yeah. Welcome, everybody. It is Tuesday, August 14th, 2012, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome to the show. We're glad to have you here for show number 42, which, of course, is the answer to the universe. Everybody knows that. 42. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. We got all sorts of people coming on the show today. Before we get to our guests, let's talk to the folks that are right here in the studio helping bring this show to you. Of course, we got Wiz Calico over there on the
Hey, I am here.
Engineer panel. How's it going, Calico?
I'm doing quite well. I got to tell you, though, that reference a little over my head. The 42 being
you missed the 42 thing. People in the chat room, you got to explain the 42 reference to Wiz Calico.
The young gun, again, messing it all up.
Also from our virtual studio in Grastoria, we've got Cannabis Carrie hanging out there. Hi, Carrie.
Hi. You mean kids don't read that book in 6th grade anymore?
Kids don't read Douglas Adams anymore, I guess.
I've never even heard of Douglas Adams. That's how bad that is.
That's how bad that is, exactly. Well, we are excited because we're getting ready for Seattle Hemp Fest taking place this weekend. We won't have a live show on Thursday because we'll be out driving to Seattle in some vehicle. We're not sure which yet, but we will get there, and we'll bring you live coverage on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday right here at ncr420.com. So before we get to HempFest, though, we got news that's happening every day here, and Carrie brings it to us in the Daily Cannabis Chronicle. What's our headlines for today?
We do. Well, today we've got a decision on some Facebook ads. I'm going to tell you all about that. Plus, we've got a court ruling that I think all of our listeners need to be aware of. And I've got some international news. So we're going to go outside of the country bounds as well. All that coming up in today's Cannabis Chronicles.
All right, we're looking forward to that. And then at 20 after, we take a break, of course, because it's 20 after, for our Daily Toker Tunes. And every day we have a different genre of tunes. Today is Electric Tuesday, where we play electronic dance music. And I'm going to bring you back something from a group we played before, a group called SPOCK, that is Spock. We played their song Dr. McCoy earlier this year. We're going to play a new song from them called Klingon 2000. Because we're all a bunch of Star Trek nerds. We can't help ourselves. Then, when we get to half past, we are going to get into our Reformer's Reader once again, where we take a look at the books out there that you need to be reading to be better informed on marijuana legalization. Today, we are featuring Martin Lee, who's got a new book out called Smoke Signals. It got a lot of play yesterday in the news because he is claiming that the federal crackdown on medical marijuana in California is a direct response to the Operation Fast and Furious investigation going on in the House. We'll ask him about that and more on the book when he's here at half past. And then at 45 past, another guest, activist Daniel Robello. He's with the Drug Policy Alliance, and he's currently a part of what's called the Caravan for Peace. Activists from Mexico are organizing this caravan to go across the United States, caravanning for peace, and to bring some awareness to the situation, the drug war situation in Mexico, where over 50,000 Mexicans have died in the violence that we've exported there from our prohibition. So we'll talk to Daniel at 45 past the hour. Then in hour two, we'll take your calls on Toker Talk Radio at 971-533-7111. Plus, I have, 3,000 or 4,000 words to say about some recent posts on the internet insulting one of my friends, Jody Emery. So we'll get to that in hour two. Stick around. It's the Russ Belville Show. We'll be right back.
It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Brought to you by the National Cannabis Coalition.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420.
In the afternoon, if I'm home, I smoke marijuana.
You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
Marijuana, yeah, yeah. Oh, I got my ganja.
And blue blasten gurgen, pfaffen der blasten schnurb norb. Help us legalize it. Text NCC to 420-420 and send $10 to the National Cannabis Coalition. Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, ganja sacrament, consumer cannabis. The topic of marijuana is heating up the news, and the Russ Belville Show catches you up with today's latest headlines. Now, here's our senior news editor, Cannabis Carey, with the Daily Cannabis Chronicle.
The popular social networking site Facebook has changed their policies about marijuana leaf images and advertisements just this week. Facebook has for years censored certain images out of Facebook, and one of those images has been the iconic marijuana leaf. The Just Say Now campaign has been trying to use a marijuana leaf in their ads since 2010 when they were campaigning to legalize marijuana in Arizona, Oregon, California, Colorado, and South Dakota during the 2010 campaign. Just Say Now is an online campaign started by progressive blog FireDogLake.com. When the Just Say Now campaign ads were pulled 2 years ago, over 15,000 supporters signed an online petition asking Facebook to allow the Just Say Now ads. Free speech groups approached the Just Say Now groups as well as the Students for a Sensible Drug Policy, who also had ads banned by Facebook. An ACLU attorney and electronic activism director of the Electronic Frontier Foundation said they held several discussions with Facebook executives last week. ACLU attorney Linda Lai said that Facebook representatives were quick to admit that they had misinterpreted or even failed to follow Facebook guidelines in censoring the image for the activist groups. She says that Facebook's position is clear, that they are a neutral platform. It was a mistake to reject an ad over political advocacy. Facebook sent out a statement at the end of last week saying that Facebook's advertising policy had not changed, but they would allow a marijuana leaf to be shown in the context of an political activity, not just an illegal activity such as marijuana sales. But indeed, on Monday, the Just Say No campaign, which is currently raising money for all three marijuana legalization efforts in Washington, Colorado, and Oregon, and the medical marijuana law efforts on the ballots of Massachusetts, North Dakota, and Arkansas, says that their ads that have their logo, which includes a stylized marijuana leaf, was approved. So for Brian Sorenstein, a Just Say Now organizer, says that the restoration of the ad this year is continuing evidence of a shift in public attitudes towards cannabis law reform. He says the support for all three initiatives is stronger than it's ever been.
No, I'll tell you what it's continuing evidence of, right? We had John Walker from Fire Dog Lake on the show complaining about the Facebook ban. Next thing you know, the Facebook ban is gone. Belville bump, baby. Belville bump. I'm just joking, but this is great news that Facebook's finally come around on this and recognize that, one of the activists said it this way: it's like trying to run a political campaign, but you can't show the picture of your candidate. If you can't show a pot leaf when you're talking about marijuana legalization. And this just brings up something that has always bothered me about marijuana. You notice I wear this hat. It's got the pot leaf on it. I've got various versions of it. Almost any time you see me, there will be a pot leaf on me somewhere, right? And part of the reason why I do that is to remind myself what it's like to be living under prohibition, because of the looks you get from people sometimes. And, also the fact that, I'm a middle-aged white guy. I'm not likely to get messed with when it comes to marijuana. But if I wear this, it kind of reminds me what we're all, in this for. But the other reason why is because the censorship of the marijuana leaf gives you some idea as to why marijuana is prohibited. And it's because of cultural reasons. It's because of symbology. Has very little to do with what marijuana actually does. First of all, nobody's out there smoking marijuana leaves, or very few people, right? They might be processing them into hash or whatever, but very few people are smoking marijuana leaf, right? So the very symbol they're banning is not the drug that they are so worried about. They're not, worried about the pictures of the bud, right? The bud pictures, although I suppose they probably ban those too. But still, the point is that the leaf is not the drug, right? But yet that's the symbol of the drug, and that's why they have to ban it. The other thing that's annoying to me is banning it from the idea that it promotes the use of drugs. Now, I can understand that if you're talking about banning pictures of a joint, pictures of a bong, pictures of, a vapor, whatever it might be, where someone's using marijuana. But the leaf itself is a piece of nature. You're censoring a leaf. You're censoring nature itself, right? That's where I have the problem. I don't see Facebook banning pictures of opium poppies or banning pictures of coca leaves, just the marijuana leaf, because of its political symbology, not because of its pharmacology, right? This is what gets frustrating about this. I'm glad Facebook has finally seen the light and come around to this.
A U.S. appeals court has ruled today that a man convicted of marijuana trafficking did not have a reasonable expectation of privacy with his cell phone when he was apprehended. The case goes all the way back to July of 2006, when federal agents tracked Melvin Skinner using global positioning signals that were emitted by the mobile phone that he was using. The DEA obtained a court order to track Melvin Skinner's phone after finding his number in the course of an investigation of a large-scale drug trafficking operation. Now, without knowing Melvin Skinner's name, since he had registered the cheap throwaway phone under a false name, or even what he looked like, DEA agents used the GPS data to find him at a rest stop in Abilene, Texas, with a motorhome that contained more than 1,100 pounds of marijuana. He was convicted of trafficking when a lower court said that the GPS tracking was lawful and that any evidence found in the search that followed was admissible in court. U.S. Circuit Court Judge John Rogers wrote in that decision, quote, "If a tool used to transport contraband gives off a signal that can be tracked for location, certainly the police can track that signal. The law cannot be that a criminal is entitled to rely on the expected untrackability of his tools." Rogers' ruling distinguished this case from a ruling earlier this year from a U.S. Supreme Court that curbed the ability of police to track people using GPS devices. Now, the case was in reference to police actually putting a device on a suspect's car without their knowledge to track them and without the benefit of a warrant. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Anton Scalia said that the police in that case were encroaching upon a protected area. But both Judge Rogers in this case and now U.S. Circuit Judge Eric Clay says that no such physical intrusion was used in the Sinner case. In the 2-1 ruling today, the one dissenting judge, U.S. Circuit Judge Bernice Donald, said that this discovery of Skinner's location by using a mobile phone constituted a search as defined by the U.S. Constitution, requiring federal agents to obtain a warrant or explain why they should be granted an exception. But to be clear, Donald did concur in Skinner's ultimate conviction on other grounds. Both Judges Rogers and Clay said in their footnotes, in their opinions, that they didn't want to suggest that there wasn't a reasonable expectation of privacy just because Skinner's phone was used in the commission of a crime. But the ruling is clear. People that own cell phones must be aware that their cell phones can be tracked by authorities, and many of those pay-as-you-go phones have GPSs installed. The ruling says that you are not protected under the Fourth Amendment, and citizens should not expect privacy since a suspect's presence in a publicly observable place is not information subject to the Fourth Amendment protection. Now, this is similar, Russ, to just as a dog is allowed to track a fugitive legally, even if the fugitive is not aware that the dog had his scent. Now, the recent cell phone technology, according to the judges, cannot be used for the benefit of criminals without also being used for the benefit of police.
Yeah, it's a twisted kind of logic, but what you said there about the dogs at the end kind of matches what I was thinking. You've got a device in your pocket. You've got this item that broadcasts a signal, that sends out a signal, just like your body sends out a scent, right? And if this scent or signal is out in the public, there's nothing stopping a cop from detecting that scent or signal. So I understand the twisted logic behind this, and this just reminds us as cannabis consumers that there are many times when you should be taking the battery out of your cell phone.
And I've got some news from outside of the U.S. borders today. The trains always ran on time under Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, who loved to build tunnels for efficiency. But now, more than half a decade later, police have discovered a sprawling marijuana farm in one of those famed underground tunnels underneath Rome. Italian authorities that worked with financial police raided the underground passageway near an Italian central bank vault on Saturday after a patrol car said that he kept smelling the strong odor of marijuana on his rounds. That smell was coming from the entrance to a company that was cultivating culinary mushrooms in the entrance of that tunnel. When officers peered inside over a makeshift wall at the back of the mushroom farm, they found a 43,000 square foot tunnel that was housing an estimated $3.7 million worth of marijuana. Inside, they found not only the plants, but built up greenhouses, expensive lighting, ventilation, irrigation systems, and vacuum packaged marijuana ready for sales. They also found a blackboard with work shifts marked on it, showing that it was a regular business operation, just one that is illegal in Italy. Many of those underground tunnels in Rome are being currently used to cultivate mushrooms because the tunnels are humid and cool. The police might be checking a few more mushroom farms in light of this weekend's busts.
Yeah, that's mushroom farms that are sprouting out pot. Yeah, that's an interesting story there. But thanks, Carrie, for the international news out of Italy. Also, we wanted to make a brief note in passing, and we'll cover it in more detail on tomorrow's Cannabis Chronicles, about initiative language in Michigan that has just been certified for the petitions or the balloting, and we'll get more details on that tomorrow. Carrie, did you have any just brief coverage on what that was?
Just that the language that they had for that ballot initiative was approved. It's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It looks like a decrim initiative will be going to the voters in November. So even this late in the game, Russ, we are still getting more positive cannabis reforms on those ballots come November. So good job, activists out there in Michigan.
Yeah, great job, Michigan. All right, so good. We'll bring again more of that on tomorrow's news when we have all the details. But also, I wanted to take a little bit of time to remind folks that we'll be heading to Seattle Hemp Fest at the end of this week. We won't have a show on Thursday. We will be live on Friday, Saturday, Sunday from Seattle Hemp Fest. Check us out at ncr420.com for all the coverage. Plus, I'm going to start posting up on the NCR 420 calendar the speaking slots of various people that we'll be trying to cover. I know Sam Chapman's got a couple of speaking spots up there. The presidential candidate for the Green Party, Dr. Jill Stein, has a speaking spot. Judge Jim Gray, the vice presidential candidate from the Libertarian Party, has spots. Jody Emery, bunches of people that we want to cover. So we'll start putting that up on the calendar so you have some idea of what we're going to get. It may not be perfectly live in that we'll probably video record it and then bring it to the booth and upload it and show it to you. So it'll be what we call stoner live, like just a minute or two after it happens, we'll bring that to you. So make sure you're checking that out this weekend, ncr420.com. Also, joining us up there in Seattle, we're going to have such a great time. Of course, Adam Hand from handmadeapparel.biz is going to be there. I saw his booth come up, 504, I think it was, will be up there. Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. He's a longtime vendor at Seattle Hemp Fest. You can check him out in booth 422. High Times Normal will be around the 426 booth area. These are all by the main stage, by the way. And our booth for National Cannabis Radio will be probably around the 470s, around the other corner from Herb Age's booth. So you want to check that out. Ganja John will be up there in the Handmade Apparel booth, debuting some of his new stuff up there. So check that out and visit us at the NCR 420 booth as well. And we'll have, all sorts of great fun for you. Plus, brief mention, our friends from the Weed Blog will be there, theweedblog.com. Johnny Green and Johnny Green and Ninja Smoker. And it's Ninja Smoker's birthday today. So happy birthday to you. We'll see you up at Seattle Hemp Fest. It's going to be a good time. Hempfest.org for more details. And you can always find us at ncr420.com.
It's 420 back in Idaho, where Russ and Carrie were born. So we have to go connect with our Russ. know what I mean? Please support these sponsors who support the Russ Belville Show.
All right, when we come back, beam on down, Trekkers, because we got some Star Trek-inspired music from SPOCK coming up for Electric Tuesday. Stick around. We'll be right back.
If he said he swam to China, he would send you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215. Or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
The Russ Belville Show. Chat is for friends 18 and older. We expect our chat to be civil, mature, and free from excessive profanity. If you don't like these rules, there are approximately 6 billion other chat rooms with lower standards that you can visit. Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Electric Tuesday, featuring the latest in electronic dance music and other cutting-edge genres. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It's about 23 after the hour, and one of the things we're very fond of here, especially on Tuesdays, is science. We're big fans of science here at National Cannabis Coalition, National Cannabis Radio, and the Russ Belville Show. And, we'll play a lot of those Symphony of Science tracks, and we always have a good look at the world of science and what's going on. But we also really enjoy science fiction. I know myself, I was born in 1968 when the original Star Trek series was getting canceled by NBC. But I grew up in the 70s when it was on reruns like crazy. They had the animated series and the regular series being rerun like crazy. And, Star Trek to me was just a big part of growing up. And I know it is for a lot of people out there, too. So I was delighted when I was looking around the IOTA promo net a couple months back for a Tuesday song. And I found a band called Spock. Well, not exactly Spock. It's SPOCK. And I don't know what that stands for. They don't give any indication of what that stands for on this download sheet that I'm on. But they're this Star Trek-inspired kind of synth pop group, and they've been really popular in Europe, but they haven't been heard so much here in America. But they finally got a release out here in North America on a record company called Art of Fact. Not Artifact, but Art of Fact Records. And the album we're going to play from here is called Another Piece of the Action, the best of the subspace years. And it's kind of their greatest hits compilation. It's got 19 of their most successful club hits that they had in Europe, including the song Dr. McCoy that we played a while ago here on Electric Tuesday. They've got another song called E.T. Phone Home. There's Queen of Space, Astro Girl's Secret, and The Children Shall Lead, a very famous Star Trek episode title. But today we're going to bring you this song. It's a radio mix of a song for the enemies in the Star Trek series, at least the original Star Trek series. This is Spock with Klingon 2000 for your Electric Tuesday Daily Toker Tunes.
Never
ugly. They're evil, vicious, ruthless bastards. And they stink. Never trust a waiting on. You will always regret it. Never trust a waiting on. You will never forget it. You will always regret it. You will never forget it. Never trust a waiting on. You will always regret it.
That's right, folks. Never trust a Klingon. We're back with Martin Lee, author of Smoke Signals, in our Reformer's Reader, right after these messages.
Dear Mom, when I was in college, I used to drink a lot. It was kind of crazy. But now that I'm older, I prefer to use marijuana. It's less harmful to my body, I don't get hungover, and honestly, I feel safer around marijuana users. I hope this makes sense, but if not, let's talk. I love you.
TalkItUpColorado.org. Start your conversation about marijuana, paid for by the Campaign to Regulate Marijuana like Alcohol.
Funky roller ring.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening, Groovy Cats? This is your Funk Master of Ceremonies, Big Daddy, and I want you to join me every Thursday night at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, right here at the Funky Roller Ring. National Cannabis Radio's home of soul, funk, and disco.
Funky-licious.
There's always a party at the Funky Roller Rink, baby.
The best weapon you can have in the Prohibition War is your mind. Fill your head with the knowledge you need by checking out this latest entry in the Russ Belville Show's Reformer's Reader.
All right, welcome back, everybody. 30 after the hour, and we're speaking with Martin Lee. He is the author of the new book, Smoke Signals. And Martin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Russ. Happy to be with you.
I have the disadvantage of not having the book in my hand to get a lot of specific questions on here, but I have been reading some of the reviews and coverage of it. And one of the things that's come out about this is your contention that the recent federal crackdown on medical marijuana in the state of California primarily is due to a plan to, or maybe not a plan, but just to distract attention from the Operation Fast and Furious scandal. Explain that to our listeners, what's going on there and how you've made that correlation.
First, just a quick note to indicate that I did write about the Fast and Furious scandal, but it was a follow-up article to the book. That's not actually in the book itself.
Okay.
But what I contended in this recent article is that there was a tremendous amount of pressure on the Obama Justice Department, particularly Eric Holder, the Attorney General, as a result of the Fast and Furious scandal. That was a scandal involving all the missing guns that had been ended up in the hands of the Mexican drug cartels as a result of a botched sting operation, a surveillance operation that the United States intelligence was trying to get information about the cartels by following these guns. They allowed them into Mexico, but then they got lost. Some of these guns had been linked to murders and other crimes, including the murder of a U.S. Border Patrol agent. That came out in December 2010. That the guns linked to this botched surveillance operation was involved in the murder of a U.S. citizen, in particular a Border Control agent. For the next 9 months, there was mounting pressure on Eric Holder at the Justice Department to come clean about what he knew about this scandal. And tensions were mounting, and it really reached a head in early October of last year. In October 2nd, Holder released a whole bunch of documents related to the scandal to a congressional committee investigating it. There was a big shakeup in the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Agency. And then finally, on October 7th, he handed in a detailed explanation or responses to a letter from the Congress committee investigating this. And it was on the same day that a very hastily organized press conference occurred in California, where the 4 federal prosecutors announced they were going to really go after medical marijuana. They were taking the gloves off. And it's my contention that Holder in an attempt to shore up support within law enforcement, and there was a lot of dissension because of this Fast and Furious scandal within law enforcement, he decided to throw law enforcement in California and elsewhere the perfect bone, and that was, okay, guys, go after the medical marijuana scene. That's what they've been wanting to do. They were aching to do this for several years now. And when Holder was in trouble, he decided to save his own butt, if you will, by letting him go after medical marijuana, and this was both to deflect attention from the Fast and Furious scandal, but really to win over or to ensure the loyalty of law enforcement at a time when he was under a lot of pressure.
But I'm curious as to how the support of law enforcement helps Eric Holder when the people that are going after him are in Congress. Where's the link there?
Well, there was a lot of dissension within law enforcement. For example, in Arizona, a dozen sheriffs announced on the same day, October 7, 2011, last year, that they were going to hold a press conference calling for Holder's resignation. There were calls coming from for his resignation from many different quarters. Okay. The people were very upset on the ground. Now, mind you, medical marijuana is very popular around the country as a treatment option. Very popular in California in particular. So Obama's not seeking to win over any votes among the mass public here. It's really an effort to keep law enforcement in tow at a time when his administration is under pressure because of this scandal.
This is a provocative claim, and the Obama administration has not directly rebutted it, but in the past they have said that no, this is just the U.S. attorneys acting of their own will. It's not being directed from the White House or any place higher than that. Do you have evidence that shows a connection? Any orders being given by DOJ directly to these U.S. attorneys?
The prosecutors don't go after this. They don't do this sort of things without the go-ahead from the Justice Department. It's nonsense, the idea that all of a sudden on this particular day, the prosecutors would feel such an urgency that it had to do this then, as if people were dropping like flies in California because of medical marijuana. The one thing that really comes through really loud and clear since the passage of Proposition 215, the medical marijuana law in California in 1996, there has been no pattern of any deaths or any health problems attributed to medical marijuana. So the idea that they did this because of public health concerns is nonsense. Yes. This is what they've been wanting to do with law enforcement for years now. And finally they got the chance, and it came at just the right time for Holder, and they had to have given the go-ahead there. I don't think there's any doubt about that. These things don't just happen on their own, that they enforce a policy that's against the will of the President or the Justice Department. That's really nonsense.
So this is more of one of those the dog that didn't bark kind of things. Of course it happened this way because it always happens this way.
Yes, you you could look at this scandal and say there's a lot of smoke here, but maybe not a smoking gun because the guns are missing.
Yeah.
This is, we have to think of how mystified people have been in California and elsewhere. Why is this going on? Why has the Obama administration decided to do this? At an election year, he can only lose votes from this. He's not, it makes no sense. And this is finally an explanation of what might be going on behind the scenes. And it really underscores, in my opinion, how medical marijuana will never be safe until full legalization is implemented.
Hear, hear.
Because as long as full legalization isn't there, they will always use marijuana and medical marijuana as a political hot potato, as something to use for their own ends. And in this case, Holder was trying to shore up his own bureaucratic position, and he's managed to hang on, in partly because he is given this great favor to law enforcement, what they've been wanting all along.
We're speaking with Martin A. Lee. He is the author of Smoke Signals, A Social History of Marijuana, Medical, Recreational, and Scientific. You're also the author of Acid Dreams, The History of LSD. Is that correct?
Yes, that was some years ago. You could look at the Smoke Signals as kind of the bookend for that, as a related sequel.
And you can find all this on the web. It's at smokesignalsthebook.com. And we'll talk about the book in a second. I just wanted one last follow-up on the Truth Out article. San Francisco Gate reported on the article and kind of called into question the correlation, saying that a lot of the issues in the federal crackdown happened way before anything happened with Fast and Furious. Do you have any response for SF Gate on that?
Well, if you look at if you juxtapose the two timelines of when Fast and Furious was first disclosed in December 2010, And then look at what's happening in the medical marijuana world and the pressure and the threats that the Justice Department has been putting on this. And you can see a correlation. It keeps increasing over time. As Holder is put under more pressure because of this scandal, he's putting more pressure on the medical marijuana scene. But the juxtaposition of the dates of Holder, the Attorney General, handing in the detailed answers to the questionnaire that had long been sought by Congress on the same day that the federal attorneys in California are holding their press conference. It's a striking correlation.
Sure is.
We don't know exactly what happens behind the scene, but I think this is a cogent and plausible explanation as to why the Obama Justice Department had decided to go after medical marijuana when it did.
Yeah, it certainly is the only reasonable explanation I've heard so far from what we saw in President Obama's campaign in 2008 and Holder's promise in 2009. It seemed like they didn't even really want to be bothered with the marijuana issue. Let it be, states take care of what you're going to do. And then this abrupt change that it seems happened, like when you said, around that October 2010 time, is a little bit fishy, don't you think?
I do, but it's not to say that the Obama administration has been a profile and courage on the marijuana issue before all this.
That's true.
Hardly. Within the first week when he was inaugurated, there were continuing federal raids, and people at the time thought, oh, well, that's just the DEA being a little out of control. But then the raids continued, and they would continue, and people were sort of scratching their heads, saying, well, Obama, he smoked marijuana as a teenager, a lot apparently, and what's going on here? And people were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. And the Ogden memo came out in November 2009. It seemed like it gave a green light to the medical marijuana industry, but when you go back and look at that memo, you see there was a lot of ambiguity. It was full of holes. It was wide open to interpretation, particularly the California context. The key line was anything that abides by state law would be okay. The problem is the law is ambiguous. Yeah. So the federal government can determine, okay, you are abiding by the law, you're not, and they could do what they want. So there was, I think, people in the medical marijuana scene tended to misinterpret the mixed signals that were coming initially from Obama. But when you consider, again, the reappointment of Michelle Reinhart as head of the DEA, this is from the Bush administration. She was, there are plenty of things, when you look at it, it's rather sobering. It doesn't paint a pretty picture of Obama's policy. So it's true what San Francisco Gate said. Yes, there's been pressure on all along. It wasn't like, black and white, but certainly a turning point happened on October 7th. That's when the federal attorneys in California threw down the gauntlet, and we've seen what has happened since then. About half the dispensaries of the 1,400 known to have been operating no longer exist. Yeah. So, whether it happened explicitly because it's Fast and Furious, we can't say 100% for sure, but I think it's a reasonable thesis, and I haven't heard anything better explaining it.
Yeah. Well, the book is Smoke Signals. Martin Ailey is the author here, and the good news, folks, if you're going to be catching us up at Seattle Hemp Fest, Martin's going to be up there. You're doing the book launch up there at Seattle Hemp Fest, correct?
That's right. Today's the first pub day, but we'll be at Hemp Fest. I'll be giving 3 talks up there, and I'll be speaking in the Seattle area for a few days afterwards. It's all on the website, smokesignalsthebook.com.
Yeah, Smoke Signals the book. Now, as far as the book goes, it's 528 pages. What are, our audience that you're speaking to are fairly well informed on marijuana topics. Is this a book that the marijuana aficionado, someone who's well read on marijuana, is going to find as much use out of as the person who's brand new and doesn't know a thing about marijuana?
Yes, I wrote for both audiences in mind. There'll be a lot of new facts there for even the aficionado. But really, I wanted to speak to that audience of people who would think, well, yeah, there ought to be medical marijuana as a treatment option. If people need it, the doctor says so, that's fine. But I don't think it should be legalized. Yeah. I was talking to those people because that really doesn't make sense from their point of view, to my opinion. And I think if they read the book carefully, they won't share that opinion anymore. I think anyone who reads this book with an open mind can't help but conclude that marijuana prohibition is a disaster and it should be changed.
Yes, and also where you'll be at the Hemp Fest, if people don't get to catch your speeches, it says here you'll be at the Project CBD information booth?
Yes, it'll be near the Hemposium area of the Hempfest. You know, Hempfest is quite big. There's a lot that goes on there. And Project CBD information booth, our vending booth, will be near the Hemposium area. And anybody's welcome to drop by and say hi.
Yeah, and of course, Project CBD, we can't give them enough shout-outs. What they're doing to bring out the medical use of the non-psychoactive cannabinoid CBD is groundbreaking and is giving us a lot of new converts, a lot of people realizing that we weren't just kidding when we were saying it was medical. How did you get involved with the Project CBD people?
Well, I had been covering as a journalist these science conferences that were taking place, international conferences where hundreds of scientists would get together and talk about the endocannabinoid system, the system of receptors in the brain and the body that respond pharmacologically to cannabis. And it's all quite interesting and very technical, I might add. And I kept hearing about this thing called CBD, cannabidiol. It was sort of like the rising star at these conferences. And when I realized the medical potential of CBD, and we're talking about something that protects the brain against alcohol poisoning, that shrinks cancerous tumors, that prevents the onset of diabetes, and on and on. It's really quite if there's anything that's a miracle compound, it's CBD. And then when we found out in California from some of the analytical labs and started to test the cannabis strains for the dispensaries, and once in a while some CBD would pop up in there. We informed the testers and the growers what was going on, and we realized, hey, we really got to get these strains into circulation and let people know about it. So what we tried to do at Project CBD was communicate what the scientists were discovering and relate that to the doctors, the patients, and the public at large, and also to report to the scientists what was happening on the ground, what is happening on the ground in California, Colorado, Washington, and other states where medical marijuana is legal. These scientists live in a world of their own. They don't deal with marijuana directly. They deal with test tubes and petri dishes and synthetic compounds, and they tweak receptors. But it's helpful for them to know that kids with intractable epilepsy, Dravet syndrome, respond very favorably to CBD. So that when they do their lab experiments on mice and they're finding, hey, they create a model of epilepsy in a mouse and it seems to stop epilepsy when they're given CBD. Well, look, there's a correlation there. Yeah. We want to point out those correspondences.
That's fantastic. ProjectCBD.org for more information on that. And SmokeSignalsTheBook.com, correct? To get to your, was it? SmokeSignalsTheBook.com. Martin A. Lee is the author of the new book, Smoke Signals, everything you need to know about the history, culture, and science of marijuana, including CBD. We look forward to meeting you at HempFest, and I hope the book does well for you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Russ.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about Caravan for Peace with Daniel Rebello. Stick around.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Our marijuana laws are terribly unfair, and they make criminals out of law-abiding citizens. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges, and we are unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They are average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. And it's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Jive, Mary, Grifo, grass, hay. Technically, it's cannabis sativa, the common ass, hay. Technically, it's cannabis sativa, the common name, marijuana. She has found a crutch to see her through her difficulties instead of facing up to them and coping with them. And in time, she may be ready to try something different, something better.
Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
Welcome back, everyone. 46 after the hour. And we are speaking now with Daniel Rebello, who works with the Drug Policy Alliance. And specifically, we're here to talk about the Caravan for Peace. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Tell our listeners what the Caravan for Peace is.
The Caravan for Peace with Justice and Dignity is a binational civil society mobilization on the part of the Mexican Movement for Peace with Justice, led by the renowned poet Javier Sicilia, whose son was killed last year in prohibition-related violence. Javier has started a mass movement in Mexico, and they've traveled in caravans throughout the extent of Mexican territory, and now they decided to take their caravan to the U.S. because of the shared responsibility for the failed drug war on both sides of the border.
Now, the caravan has just begun. I've got this San Diego on the 12th, Los Angeles yesterday and today. And it looks as though most of the caravan is traveling along the border states, aside from maybe Chicago, Cleveland, New York, and a little bit of the East Coast. How has the response been so far in San Diego and L.A.?
The response has been an enormous outpouring of support. The caravan, the activists and family members of victims of prohibition-related violence have been embraced by local communities, and we expect to be embraced by communities throughout these United States. In San Diego, we had a rally at Friendship Park on the border to discuss not only the failed drug war and prohibition-related violence and solutions to that, as well as a new class of immigrants that's coming over fleeing this violence. And then in the evening, we had an event with moms that have been affected, that have lost their children to the drug war, either to violence due to prohibition or incarceration or overdose or preventable disease problems that have only been made worse by failed prohibitionist policies. And these moms on both sides of the border sharing their powerful stories. In Los Angeles, we were greeted by artists, celebrities, actors, directors, and the City Council of Los Angeles today passed a resolution supporting the caravan and its objectives. A central one of which is ending prohibition and calling for an immediate debate about all possible alternatives, including drug regulation.
That's fantastic news. We're speaking with Daniel Rebello from Drug Policy Alliance, working for the Caravan for Peace with Justice and Dignity. And you can find out more about this on the web. Now, I'm looking at a site. It's globalexchange.org/Mexico/caravan. Is there any other web address that gets them there quicker?
Sure. Your listeners can visit caravanforpeace.org.
Okay, Caravan for
Find
Peace.
out. They'll be coming to a city near you.
Yeah, caravanforpeace.org, and looking through the tour here, we've got Phoenix and Tucson coming up next, Las Cruces, New Mexico, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, El Paso, Laredo, Brownsville, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, New Orleans, Jackson, Mississippi, Montgomery, Alabama, Atlanta, Louisville, Kentucky, Chicago, Cleveland, New York, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. And you're reaching Washington, D.C. September 10th, 11th, and 12th. So this is a jam-packed caravan. You're literally doing a show almost every day. How many people are involved with this?
There's over 100 people, almost 150 people in total, with 2 buses and scores of cars and vans following suit. And the majority of the caravan group there's over 70 activists from Mexico, many of which are family members who have lost loved ones to prohibition-related violence, as well as their allies and supporters in the United States, including the Drug Policy Alliance, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, NAACP, and over 100 NGOs on the U.S. side of the border.
That's excellent. Great work here. And as far as these tour dates, if any of our listeners are in the border states of those East Coast states or Chicago where you're going to be going to, do you need more volunteer help on the ground? Is there any way they can help if you need it?
They sure can. On that website, caravanforpeace.org, they can view the whole route. They can click on each city to find out the details, the itinerary, the planned events, and there's local contact information if they'd like to get involved. One of the ways we've made this massive undertaking possible is in-kind donations of food, of places to sleep, and help with organizing events to really raise awareness about the role of the U.S. government, its policies, not just drug policy, but most importantly drug policy, also policies towards arms, policies towards money laundering, policies towards military aid to Mexico in pursuit of the failed drug war, and really trying to raise awareness so that we can demand changes from both governments.
You know, I'm so glad that the Caravan is doing this and raising awareness of the how we've exported our prohibition violence. You know, a lot of people in America realized alcohol prohibition wasn't working when the bodies started piling up in the streets of Chicago. Right now, the bodies are piling up in the streets of Juarez and Matamoros and all these other Mexican cities, and we don't see it on our TVs. You know, I've got 3 different Spanish language channels, Univision and Azteca TV and I think Estrella TV that come into my living room. And on their network news, I watch their nightly news, they've got the scenes. You see the bodies in the streets. You see the bodies hanging from the overpasses, and you see the banners that the drug cartels are putting up to taunt the police. We don't see it on our evening news. Do you think this is going to make a change to the way the media covers the Mexican side of the drug war?
We do, and that's one of the main goals of the Caravan is to raise awareness amongst the U.S. public through the media and amongst U.S. civil society so that we can hopefully inspire folks on the U.S. side to demand a change in their government. So often in our media here in the United States, it's portrayed as a Mexican problem.
Yeah.
But we know very well it's a problem made in the USA. Our drug consumption keeps these organizations, criminal organizations in business. The criminal organizations were created by drug prohibition. And as long as we're never going to be able to eliminate demand, there's always going to be a demand, and so there will always be a supply and always be criminal organizations to provide that supply. So we need to start approaching things differently. What we've tried has failed for 40 years, and the Caravan is saying very clearly, we need to urgently explore all options. Let's put all options on the table, including the many different ways of regulating drugs so that we can put these traffickers out of business.
Absolutely. We are speaking with Daniel Rebello from Drug Policy Alliance. It's the Caravan for Peace, Caravan for Peace and Justice, and we are urging everyone to check this out. Caravanforpeace.org is some more information. And I just been advised here of a piece in The Nation magazine, Tom Hayden writing on this Caravan for Peace, and it says that the main purpose here, that you've said the main purpose is to make Mexico's national emergency tangible in the United States and to create this platform to affect public opinion. How are we going to get more attention to the Caravan? Are there going to be TV ads, or is it just going to be the Caravan itself?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, it sounds like it's gotten kind of loud back there. I was just wondering, as far as promotion of the Caravan, will we be seeing TV ads, radio ads, etc.?
We expect to have some PSAs in different radio stations and different local media markets, and we are just trying to reach out to the media, reaching out to local organizations, reaching out to local officials. When we get to Washington, D.C., we'll be calling on September 12th, when the Caravan officially concludes, we'll be calling for International Days of Peace in Mexico, International Days of Action for Peace in Mexico, from September 12th through the 21st, and we hope to make that a global phenomenon and continue to raise the profile of this incredibly important, critical issue facing our neighbors and facing our communities here in the United States.
Excellent. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to give an answer to the next question or if it's just speculation, but of course, here in America, we've got Oregon, Washington, and California voting on various examples of legalization, regulation of marijuana. Is this getting play in Mexico? Are the Mexican people hearing about this? And does it excite them to think 1, 2, or 3 American states might finally legalize?
Absolutely. Our Mexican allies and partners, our neighbors, are paying close attention to what's going on in Colorado, Washington, and Oregon. If just one state decides to legally regulate marijuana like alcohol, which over half of the U.S. public supports nationally, according to the latest poll, then it will really be a game changer. That's what happened with California and medical marijuana in 1996. Now we have 17 states in D.C. So if one state takes the lead, many will follow suit. It's a sad reality that the federal government is attacking medical marijuana programs that have been quite effective, very few problems, and have taken over 1 million consumers off the streets into regulated establishments to consume their marijuana instead of funding organized crime. And by attacking these regulated systems in the several states that have them, we're just pushing these consumers back into the arms of organized crime.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Daniel Rebello from Drug Policy Alliance. We're talking about the Caravan for Peace with Justice and Dignity at caravanforpeace.org. Hey, I want to thank you for joining us. It sounds like it was a difficult situation trying to hear us, but we appreciate you calling in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Peace to you, too. And I encourage everyone to check out the map. Again, caravanforpeace.org is the website that got the map of the various cities across the southern United States, as well as Chicago, Cleveland, and New York, Philly, and D.C., New York, Baltimore, and D.C. To check that out. They still need some volunteer support. If you want more information, you can go to email and just email Mexico at globalexchange.org for more information. Follow them on Twitter as well. Their Twitter address is Caravan AUSA. Is that right? Caravana. All right. Caravana USA. There we go. So Spanish. So Caravan AUSA if you're trying to go there American style, I guess. But Caravan AUSA on Twitter. And again, caravanforpeace.org is the website. Important that we get this information out to the mainstream media because, they always say in media, if it bleeds, it leads, right? That stuff that is dark and where people are hurt tend to get ratings, but it never seems to be the case when it's not Americans that are getting hurt and killed. And this is a country that's just immediately to our south, folks. We can't ignore what's going on there, and we cannot deny. In fact, Hillary Clinton, our Secretary of State, even admitted that it's our insatiable demand for drugs that is fueling the violence of this drug war. And she was one of the many who had said 60% of the profits that these cartels are making come from the prohibition of marijuana. And regardless of what you might think the number is, why do we give any business to torturing Mexican terrorists? Let's legalize marijuana here in America. There's plenty of farmers here who will be glad to grow it. Hey folks, that's all the time we got for Hour 1 here. We're going to take it into Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, with a special bonus extended rant. You're going to want to stick around for this one. And more of your calls at 971-533-7111, plus other news stories that didn't make it into Hour 1. For Cannabis Carey and Wiz Khalico, thanks for joining us. I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.